I got nothing. I have no humorous aside to begin this video with and ease you into today's review. This video marks a point where I officially halfway through the Chaotix mod by Team Combi Rings. I have to say that I haven't been completely bowled over like some comments made me believe I would, but that's likely skill issues on my end. I can see the quality of the characters, but because I'm not very good with most of them, I'm not really feeling them as much as someone who's got more free time to kill on the game might. That's especially true today, as Vector is specifically mentioned on the SRB2 forum page for the mod as the difficult character. Oh dear. Now, we immediately begin this video with me admitting that I don't really know what Vector is supposed to be, archetypally speaking. You've got speedy characters like Sonic, you've got explorers like Tails, you've got boss killers, but Vector doesn't really feel like he fits into any of that. His page says that he's extremely powerful when mastered, but if you're a scrub like me, you'll probably feel more like he's just sort of okay at everything rather than having a clearly defined role. He has two abilities, one for vertical movement and one for horizontal speed, but they're both pretty tricky to get to grips with, to the point that even before I started the customary 2 full playthroughs I complete for each character, I felt I needed to get some practice on how they work. Ability 1 is the Beat Bash, which is a pretty unique mashup of two usually quite distinct abilities, the Thok and the Wall Jump. Effectively, when used in open space, it functions like a particularly powerful Thok, launching you forward and temporarily stopping you from dropping out of the air. It's a lot more potent than the average version of this ability in both ways though. Vector travels really far before beginning to slow down after using the ability, and whereas the Thok usually just stops gravity for a very short while, you can cross many gaps with the Beat Bash based purely off the fact that you travel perfectly straight for an unnaturally long period of time. I admit that I can't quite theorise why the Beat Bash acts like this for so long, as it isn't really that fundamental to Vector's moveset for it to travel really far, certainly not as far as it actually goes, but it's pretty fun to use like this. It gives Vector a sense of power behind him that allows for some deceptively far-reaching jumps when combined with its additional quirk. All of that is how the Beat Bash works when used into open space, but what happens if you hit a wall while in this state? Well, that's where the difficulty lies when playing as Vector, because beat bashing into a wall causes this message to pop up. It can effectively show 3 things: early, late, or some variety of positive adjective to perk you up. This relates to how you held the jump button while using the ability, because, plot twist, Vector turns SRB2 into a rhythm game. To get a nice and high rebound off of the wall, you need to time when you let go of jump, because doing so too early or too late will cause Vector to choke. You have a little sweet spot right before hitting a wall to let go and get a nice boost, and if you can time it right, well, you can do it again, and then again and again. If you can keep hitting beat bashes correctly, you can seemingly travel up walls using it for an infinite amount of time, and so Vector is actually really powerful. But if you are not particularly rhythmically inclined, example, me, you won't be quite as lucky, because Vector only has a measly 2 beat bashes to spare for someone who can't understand good music. This is where it actually gets quite difficult for me to give my thoughts on Vector. You see, I have genuinely got no musical ability at all, and that extends all of the way down to pressing a button in a consistent way. Let me give you some examples. I have no idea where it stands in terms of rhythm game difficulty, but I was genuinely unable to even beat Daddy Dearest in Friday Night Funkin' because I could not predict his attacks, and you aren't going to get away with relying entirely on visual prompts in the rhythm game. Geometry Dash?
Forget about it!
I can just about deal with No Straight Roads, but that's partly because that game is piss poor easy and I liked it enough that I just got good. Therefore, it's very clear to me that even before I get onto a second ability, I am nowhere near scratching the surface on what Vector can do, despite having played with him for a solid 3 hours and for multiple playthroughs. In that way, I didn't massively enjoy my time with the Investigator, and I do have some genuine complaints about the Beat Bash. On the other hand, it was a very different form of not very enjoyable over someone like Mighty. I just don't think Mighty is that good, but I could definitely tell the problem with Vector is the fact that I'm not very good, and not that he's a simply unfun or poorly planned moveset. Therefore, I'm going to give some of my complaints with the character in a moment, but I'm going to try and hold back on mentioning things I feel are problems on my end entirely due to a lack of skill. Vector's second ability is the Record Rush, and in many ways, it is much the same as a normal spin dash, hold it down, blast off at a higher speed depending on how long you charged it. There are significant deviations though, mostly in how it acts if you are moving. Like Sonic, Vector can roll, but this won't cause him to lose any speed. In fact, he will continue to speed up, eventually reaching a maximum speed that can plow through spikes and run straight through enemies. You even get significantly more control over a normal roll, because you can still jump without exiting the state and even turn to some moderate success. I was never particularly good at it, because I never quite got the hang of the turning circle, which is still significantly larger than it would be by just running. I also didn't quite get the hang of the spin dash equivalent. There are effectively two versions, one being done by just holding spin and one being done by holding back at the same time, and the latter one seems to just be a more powerful version. However, I seem to still do the weaker equivalent even after inputting the right command pretty often, and I'd have to repeat it for the alternate version to actually work. Not a massive deal, because if you're going slowly enough to spin dash and not roll, you can spare the half second it takes to use the correct one, but still a slight annoyance. Now, I'm going to give two complaints here, but bear in mind that both of them can be attributed to some extent as a skill issue. I've knocked off the ones that feel entirely down to a lack of skill on my end, but I still got those two complaints. Firstly, it feels like 2 failed to beat bosses before they stop working is just a little bit too harsh. The game can be a little finicky with registering you using these at the right time, and there were plenty of moments I'd be clicking in a pattern just for the game to suddenly decide against it. It can be especially annoying when making larger jumps, because you may flunk one just to get on the wall, and then only have one other mistake to work with before you start falling into a death pit. I'd say even just one more mistake being accepted would fix this. You get a flunk 1 for getting on the wall when taking big risks with irregular timings, 1 is a buffer for the game making a mistake, and 1 is a bit of forgiveness for your genuine mistakes. It's especially needed because the ability sometimes has a habit of rebounding you off a wall in a different manner than normal from out of the blue, oftentimes getting you so close to a wall a successful beat bash becomes impossible, and then you just have to tank a flub and hope it doesn't happen again. Very annoying. I feel it can't be blamed on the play if the game suddenly and without warning expects you to adapt to a one-time change in your rhythm. Look, Vector is the best looking member of the Codex yet. It helps that he's easily got the best design of the classic Codex to use as a foundation, but that shouldn't take away from the fantastic work Team Combi-Rings has done to translate him into SRB2. He looks so vibrant without being oversaturated, and the animations compliments the Seth, for they were absolutely cooking with this. He's easily the most expressive member of the Codex, which can certainly be partially explained by him being the goofiest member, but the poses are so strong and so consistently amazing that I have almost nothing to complain about. This is it, the one sold only crack in the Illustrious Tapestry woven here, and there's nothing that the sprites could have done about it, because this is just how SRB2 works. In the context of Vector being damaged, it looks great, but it looks a bit strange when he's stuck in it for extended periods of time. In addition, his effects are fantastic, never overbearing but still helping illustrate the power of Vector's abilities, while still being thematically appropriate. The music notes are great, including the fact they become broken and desaturated if you flub a beat bass. The slightly subtler cloning and speedline effects when going fast are fantastic, and even the fact his headphones are treated as a separate entity upon death, so they fly off on their own is just, oh, it's so good. But I want to raise special attention to the beat bass captions, because I think they are absolutely perfect. From how they appear behind Vector so their spawn isn't obvious, to just how perfectly legible they are while still being fantastic looking, to how the font works with a whole variety of colours, to even how they disappear in a subtle animation so they don't just despawn. I think they're my favourite SRB2 effects yet, and getting good at the beat bass is worth it just to see them get that shot of adrenaline. Finally, we have to talk about Vector's unique audio, something I rarely need to mention with SRB2 characters. Most are near silent, so there just isn't anything to mention in this category, but Vector has a couple of different audio tracks he can play. Firstly, there's the fact he can play music on his headphones while idling, which doesn't come into play much, but is a really nice subtle detail. I especially like how it plays on top of the background music, but doesn't replace it entirely. It muffles it so that they aren't horribly mangling each other, but the fact it's still there and that the idle music is slightly edited helps make you feel like they're only coming out of headphones and not somehow overtaking the level theme. More noticeably is the fact that he plays the song from Knuckles' Chaotix during the beat bass if you time it correctly, which I of course couldn't, but even I still managed to get something resembling the original song, just massively implemented. Overall, I struggle to discuss Vector. The opinion that he is the most difficult member of the Chaotix to play as seems to be a common sentiment, and there's even people claiming that he's hard to learn and even harder to master. It's not quite the standard quote, but it explains the situation perfectly. I personally couldn't truly get the hang of him even after 2 full playthroughs, but I definitely began to enjoy him more as I was progressing, and I think I can understand the quality of the moveset even with my inability to play him at his full potential. Even if that wasn't the case, his sprites would pull him up several points by themselves. Nothing to comment on there, they can't be improved. I'll give him 2 different scores. Personally, he's a 6 because I couldn't quite vibe with him. Objectively though, I think a 10 might be in order. The only problem I can see that isn't because of a skill issue is the fact that his beat bass could be a little temperamental, but hey, that might still be my fault somehow. I don't think I've given any other character a 10 since this new scoring system came into place, but I think Vector deserves it, as long as you can invest some time into practicing your timing for the beat bass. The mechanics are next, and hoo boy, the comments in the Mighty video really seemed eager for me to play as Heavy. I wonder why. I hope you enjoyed the video, and ciao.